So I'm going to turn up my volume. And we're recording. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining me for our Zoom Lunch, Laugh, and Learn. I'm Jacqueline Richards, author of Yoga for Your Personal Finances and an amazing mortgage specialist. I have to tell you in advance, it's making sense for me to understand we are going to be together in community. For me, it makes absolute perfect sense. We will never be alone. To me, it makes perfect sense that we will continue on with our conversation, whether it's personal, professional, or in my case, sometimes spiritual. I'm a yogi, and so I take a long, deep breath. I lift my shoulders, I take them back and drop them down and say, it's okay to talk about the money. It's okay to talk about relationships. And in that I said that, I'm happy to introduce you to my guest speaker for our Zoom connection. I have been incredibly blessed to have Joyce Owen in my facility, my radar. And it's funny, Joyce, every time I go out for some really interesting conference that doesn't happen to be in Canada, I accidentally pop into you at what airport was that? Was it in Chicago, or were we on our way to Las Vegas, or was I on my way to a speaking engagement I see you everywhere, and that makes me smile. It means that we have lots to talk about, lots to say. Anyone who's looking at this have seen that not only is she an extraordinary woman, but I'm going to read this. It's a lot, and I hope you're okay that I'm going to read this. Joyce, I hope you're okay that I'm going to read this.
Okay.
Her designations, you read it. Her designations, she's a certified financial planner, and she's going to speak to us about what it means and how we can be okay when making a decision. Do we stay or do we go? Do we divorce? Do we separate? She's here to talk about how you can make those choices with information that you may never have had before. Joyce not only is a certified financial planner, she's a certified life underwriter. Can I say I'm a mortgage specialist and I know about our underwriters? It is not an easy place for me to say, can you help me out? She's a chartered financial divorce specialist. She's a member of Abacus. She is part of the Academy of Financial Divorce Specialists, not just here in Canada, but in the US, just so you know. International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Did you hear what I said? Collaboration. She also serves on a number of boards of directors, past treasurer. Is it a past treasurer, Joyce?
That's right, past treasurer.
Of Ontario Collaborative Law Federation. Say that 3 times fast.
Ontario Collaborative Law Federation. And past treasurer of Collaborative Practice Ottawa.
Okay. And so while I know that people who are here with us now live or will be seeing, because I will videotape this, even after having questions, there is conversations that's open, and it is at this moment going to be about the benefits that Joyce is going to cover. And she's going to take us through a walk through resolution progress. I will say progress and process, because it needs to be progressive as well. So she'll go through the process for us and discuss the information that will be required. I'm a mortgage specialist, and I know there's tons of paper, but maybe Joyce will tell us there's not tons of paper. I don't know. We'll find out. And she'll also help us to understand the financial complexities of separation and divorce. Thank you so much, Joyce. I'm so looking forward to this. Why? Been there, done that, and wish I had you. Joyce?
Okay, so I was just looking up some stats yesterday, and interestingly enough, to find that about 38 to 40% of marriages end up in separation to divorce by their 30th anniversary. So
Oh,
we still have a lot of separation and divorce to deal with. And well, interestingly too, I felt that with COVID, I was just reading that in China, the number of cases that have um, come up are now, it's now increasing because of COVID. And in South Korea, because of their tracking, for tracing for COVID, they've uh, they kind of know where you are. So partners are able to put the dots together and trace whether you're having an affair or not.
whoa.
So all these, and then yeah. So when you think of people having to spend time together in self-isolation, can be a tricky thing. So which brings me to when people or couples are finding that their marriage is not working out, and they think, okay, they're trying to figure out what they need to do, where to begin. It in that emotional state, it can be very frightening and seem very frightening and very complex. Okay, so what I want to maybe start off will be with other different resolution processes, and then we look at what information one needs to get together, and then take it from there. Okay, so um, the first resolution process would be court-based litigation, which I do not encourage because it can be extremely expensive. Just one court date could set you back well over $25,000, and that's money that's going out of the family pocket. When you have a couple that are separating, as it is, you get creating two new households, and you've got children. You want to try and keep as much of that money that you can for yourself and your family, rather than throwing it away into a court battle, which may not get you what you want. And so I highly discourage going through the litigative process. Processes that one could consider, I mean, the second process some people walk through is using what I call a lawyer-lawyer approach, where each retains their own lawyer, and then they communicate by either letters or emails or calls, and have that lawyer-lawyer resolution process. The other processes could be mediation, where you would have a mediator who would meet with the couple and discuss what are the what are the options, what are the issues, and discuss that with you. But they won't be able to give you advice as an individual. So then you retain your own lawyers, and you may get a financial neutral like myself to help you with the numbers part of things. And you may have family professionals if you need their help. It's called collaborative family law. And you have everyone in the process signs an agreement saying that they are not going to go to court. They're going to resolve this out of court. So you have two collaboratively trained family law lawyers. You would have a collaborative financial neutral, again, trained in the process. And you may also have a collaboratively trained family professional. So if there's issues with parenting or other issues, helping, needing to support either partner, you could have a family professional in the room. So everyone meets in the room, you have discussions over the table, across the table, and there might be work that's done offline with the financial or the family professional to get information together and to help with cost savings. So this kind of process looks at what are the goals for the family, what are the goals for the individuals, and you have your lawyers guiding you through, you have your financials guiding you, and you you come out with a resolution that's geared for you and your family. Okay, so a very good resolution process. So that kind of gives you a nutshell of some of the different ways you can come to settle this separation or divorce. Next point that I'm going to go on to is information required. Where do you begin? What do you need to do? So first thing is to the moment you start thinking about it, if you're together with you and your spouse, you start getting together your tax returns, statements for all your assets, your RSPs or non-registered investments, TFSAs,
Okay.
insurance policies,
Wow.
anything like this that you can start getting together. I recommend that you do that. And to get a more comprehensive list, you can always go to my website, joyceowen.com, which has all the information that you need. But those are just a few of the items that you need to get together. You basically try to get statements that are current dated. And if you had any assets coming into your marriage, statements and numbers to support that. If you had any inheritances or any gifts, if you've got any documentation on that.
Okay.
What else can I think of? So there's a full list of stuff that you need to get on. And I would recommend you start working on that immediately, because the more information you bring in, you're saving dollars, and by being efficient in making copies for your lawyers and for your financial neutral.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to figure out mortgages, lines of credit, visas, all of these things. So you add, what you own against what you owe, and you have your net family property. So what is a joint asset, what is owned by you and your spouse, and what's owned by yourself. And these numbers are important because this is how you determine what is the equalization. So meaning if, for instance, I had a net family property value of 100,000 and my spouse had a value of 80,000, there's a difference of 20,000. Yeah. So if I gave my spouse $10,000, we would become equal. Now, how you give that $10,000, you can either transfer it over with RSPs, maybe you have some cash that you can pass across. There's different assets that you can use, and that's where you come to use a financial divorce specialist, because a chartered financial divorce specialist helps you to make sense of all the various options. When you're looking at bigger numbers, what happens if I give the cottage? What happens if we decide to use about pension as settlement? Or what happens if I use my RSP? Or maybe I should borrow on the house. Can I afford it? What is my spousal support going to look like? Or how much am I going to pay? Now, these are typically, spousal support is a lawyer's field, but I can input those numbers into projections that I do that will help you make sense and look at the future and say, okay, well, I can make it or I can't make it, or how is this going to work out for me? And what's it going to look like with the children? How are we going to share the expenses? So these are all things that we look at in this process. Something that's also very important is once you decided you are separating, is to, like I said, gather all this information and then have a proper plan done up, because once you're going through this process, you're planning for your future, and you want to make sure that since you're looking after yourself and your children, that you're doing the best for you and your family. And this is where you will need the help of a financial divorce specialist and a financial planner to help you plan for your future. So,
sorry, Joyce, I'm going to interrupt you. I heard you say something about goals and equalization, and I wrote this down. It's amazing that you're talking about that when people are looking at a relationship they may have thought would be forever. Do you help them decide what their goals will be? Or, you said that they have to think about it. Are you helping them think about it?
bringing all the different areas that will come up and helping them talk about, okay, what are you thinking for the future? What would you like to do? Are you going to be, do you need to retrain? Do you need to get education? What about your children? Is that something of concern? Do you need to help them with their education? What are your plans for when you retire? Or what are your plans for your life? Is travel part of it? Or, look at what's important for each,
Yeah.
and then see how you're going to help them get to it. There's only a limited amount of money that's now being shared among two households.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often, a financial has to give that, be the person who's being the reality check, saying, some people come in with unrealistic expectations, saying, okay, well, this is how I lived and this is how I must continue to live. But you can't get more out of a stone. You can only,
Well said.
you have to either manage with what you have or or find some other way to get more money to reach your goals, but you have to be realistic. So that's a very important task that I have.
Great. I know I appreciated that when I went through my divorce. It was the kindest divorce I'd ever heard of. We did extremely well because we were asked, what are your goals? What would you like? What makes sense? You have a family. And those were tough conversations to have with my now ex-spouse, who really is a great friend of mine. And it would be nice if everything happened that way.
Mm-hmm. That certainly is, because when you have children between you, it's so nice. You're always going to meet your ex somewhere along the line, whether it's the wedding or grandchildren or something or the other. And if you can keep the process going so that you can still have that friendship between the two of you, that's wonderful, not only for yourself but for your children.
Exactly.
you know, instead of having memories of going through court and all the bitter memories that you have
Yeah.
from that kind of a resolution process. What I thought I would do is maybe share a very simple projection,
Absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely.
that looks at different scenarios based on spousal support, and you kind of get an idea of what a financial can do and how they can help you make sense. This is a very simple scenario. So I'm going to go into screen sharing.
Okay.
Uh,
Excellent.
share. Okay, from beginning. So this is a scenario called Kate and Kenneth,
Okay.
and it's only an illustration and not representative of any real life situation. So we have the scenario here where Kate's 46, Ken is 52. They've been married for 18 years. They've got two children, two boys, 11 and 6. And Kate's net take-home pay is 21,600, and Ken's net take-home pay is 132,000. Now it could easily be the other way around, with Ken making 21,600 and Kate being the business owner with 132,000. So not meant to have any gender bias there.
Good.
So the personal details are they have equity in their home worth 180,000. They've got mutual funds of 92,000. They have RSPs of 212,000 and a business equity of 180,000. So Ken says to Kate, I'm going to give you half of the assets, so 21,600 per year for child support for 7 years. And then when one child leaves, it drops to 18,000 per year for 5 years. So that's 1,500 per month spousal support for 6 years. So what does that look like? Now, if you're looking at this first cash flow projection, we're looking at Kate. She starts off at 21,600, index for inflation. She's got a spousal support that's taxable to her. And you've got child support, no tax impact. Living expenses are indexed for inflation. And if you look at a cash flow column after the tax liability, you say she has only 1 year of positive cash flow. She's got $518 cash. So she starts depleting. She pulls out from a non-registered, then she pulls out from her RSPs. At age 65, she's $118,000 in the red. So it doesn't look very good for her. If you look at Ken, he's got his salary of 132,000, index for inflation, spousal support is deductible to him. He has a cash flow surplus of about 56,000 the first year, so that's saved. And every year that keeps getting saved in his liquid assets and RSPs. They all grow, and at 71, he's worth $1,657,000. So that's his net worth. If you look at it graphically, you see them both starting out equally here. The blue line is Ken, and the red line is Kate, and she goes down into 0 at about 63. So the scenario 2 is, okay, let's look at increasing spousal support to $3,000 per month for 12 years. If we look at this, you'll see that that additional support gives Kate a little time to save some money rather than depleting. So from the time when she's 46 till 54, she has cash flow surplus that she saves. And at 65, she's got 343,000 net worth. And if you look at Ken, he has the same, he's at 1,000,003. So that increase in spousal didn't impact him too badly. It's still an affordable situation. If you look at the net worth chart, you see they start out equally. And Ken's the blue line, Kate is the red line, the 0 line is over here. I'm not sure whether the cursor is following through when you look at it, but
Yeah.
it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this shows that Kate's doing okay as well. It wasn't necessary to bring them that line to go exactly the same way for both all the way through, because you could say, okay, well, maybe Kate could have gone out and got another job or another, something to bring up her income levels. The purpose of this projection is to just show both Ken and Kate what happens in this particular scenario. So they can then decide, is that good for them? Are they happy with it? Will it help with the children? It's just showing what happens if. And that's a huge benefit of having a financial in the picture, because you can look at various scenarios and settlement options, and then you can either strategize or you can plan. You can both work together or individually and figure out whether, what option looks better for you. Okay. A financial divorce specialist I will never work with someone and say, I can write up an agreement or give you any legal advice. That is a lawyer's job and their jurisdiction. I work very closely with lawyers and help couples, guide them through the way and hopefully help them save some money, keep it in their pockets for themselves, and come up with something something that both of them works for the family and for them individually. Do you have any questions?
I was so appreciating it. In my head, it's like, do you think they could even it out a little more? But the comment was, it wasn't that Kate got a new profession, so any income she had was not represented in the graphs, right?
Well, her net income was 21,600, if I remember correctly, after tax. And Ken's net income after tax was 132,000.
Yeah.
So that projection based it on what was their net income and then what was the spousal support and child support, and showed what the cash flow looked like. Yeah. Very simple scenario, but real life, there's lots of other things that come into the picture, and you then figure out whether it makes sense to go with financial option A, B, or C, yeah, and which one works better for you, or D, E, F. You can have a lot of
never know.
Yes.
And then, and so then I wrote down, I have many friends who are common law. I had a good friend who common law for about 16 years, and they realized that it wasn't going to work. So they didn't have anything in writing, but common law, they had a cottage and primary residence, and they both worked. He was business for self, and she worked for the government. Would they still potentially feel the need to speak with you?
Yes, there might be different options. Well, again, with common law is different from if you're married. And again, I always say check with lawyers, but with, what property you have in your name and what property you have in your spouse's name, would be theirs. And then, they might be, you may have, be able to share in the matrimonial home. Again, depends on what they call trust, constructive trust. And again, you have to speak to lawyers. I'm not going to give you any advice there. If there's children, they could be child support. They could also be spousal support. So again, if you want to to have a look to see, does this level of support make sense? Can I afford to do that?
Yep.
Can I live on this? What about children? How are we going to look after them? So there's still things that you need to
Yeah.
look at.
In this case, there were no kids, just
Okay.
2 dogs and a cat. That was it.
When I first started a long time ago, I do remember a case where there were no children, but they had pets.
Yeah.
They actually had pet sharing, and they were going to have arrangements, custody for the pets. So, and then expenses for the pets. How were they going to share that? So the pets were the children. Yeah.
Great. So again, we can find you on your website, www.joyceowennoes.com.
That's right.
But we can call you at what phone number?
613-728-9573.
Okay. And I had a scenario, a good friend of mine said, I have a friend who needs this information. So is it a friend who's going to call you and say, please call George Smith, or is it George Smith has to call you? Like how would that work?
Either way, I mean, if they're expecting my call or being told I'll call, I will, or they can call me and have a word with me. Happy to help. In divorce and separation is it's tricky in one sense, because someone might just be contemplating it and they don't want their spouse to know.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to suddenly call and say, this is Joyce Owen. If they heard of me, what is she calling me for? You have to know whether it's safe to call, because there could be safety issues. So usually I prefer people calling me, because then I don't have to worry about whether they can speak or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No excuses.
So
And I know that you and I connect because sometimes when we're looking at the financials for a couple, there's a mortgage involved.
mm-hmm.
And so we understand that. I absolutely work in that realm too. And so I have Kleenex and coffee and tea ready, because those conversations that they had with you and will have with me can be so emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be the right thing that they're doing. So lots of paper and lots of conversation, right?
Yes, yeah, certainly. Yeah, because you play a very important role, because they may need to refinance, they may be buying a new home, so many different things that are all dependent on how it's all going to work out. They may have to refinance to pay off some of the equalization. Or they want to hold on to the house. So different kinds of situations where you play a huge role.
I love that. Neutral and equalization and goals. Those are words that I think we should be using more often, not just in this situation, but life as we know it. It should be okay to say all things can be equal in way, shape, or
form. Mm-hmm.
Like it.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you just want to take a note on?
Anything else that I want to tell you? Again, highly recommend you work with a chartered financial divorce specialist, so you can make sense of all the various options. You're working with someone who's trained in that particular role, and you want to make sure that in the process you're not selling off assets, doing things during the separation and divorce process.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do any of that till everything is finalized. And the other thing I would highly recommend too is that you get yourself new wills and powers of attorney drawn up with your lawyers.
Oh,
Very important.
See, and that was what I was supposed to say, Joyce. All of that little nugget was what I was supposed to say because I believe in it. And I hope that you'll join me for another session because we did not touch on will and estate. And that's something that people forget. You don't want the government to have to make those choices for you.
Yes, yes, for sure.
So again, thank you so much for coming out, literally and figuratively, to speak to us about things that aren't easy and should not be confusing. So thank you so much for having this conversation with us, and we all know how to be in touch with you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Been a real pleasure, as always.
As
Thank
always.
you.
All right.
Okay.